here it is, one of the most important cars of the year, the Tesla Model 3. You'll have to forgive me, we're dealing with some of Florida's infamous downpours here, but I do indeed have the Tesla Model 3 here, one of the most important cars of the year. This particular model is the long range model, so that's going to have a 310 mile range, and we also have the premium package, which is going to get a nicer interior. So this is around the same size as a 3 Series or maybe even a C-Class, only as we're going to get to drive it, it drives very differently than those cars. So I'm going to go ahead and step on inside. You have these interesting door handles here, very similar to, say, a Jaguar F-Type. So now that we're inside, this interior is very different than what you'll find on anything else in the segment. I think the only car that I can really even compare it to is maybe a Volvo, because that also just has a central screen and very few buttons. But you can see there is just nothing. It is a very, very plain dashboard. I didn't love it when I first saw pictures of it, but I think it's very clean in here, and I actually really like it in practice. You have this rather small steering wheel here. It's very small diameter. You have these little rockers that you could use to adjust the volume. They also kick left and right. And everything that you do in this car is going to be controlled on this giant screen, which I thought would be a problem. You can see there are no speedometer. There's nothing here for you here. There's no head-up display either. So everything, including your speed, gear position, is going to be handled on here. And that would be an issue, except this screen is fairly massive. It's very, very large. It is incredibly high resolution, so you can see everything incredibly clearly. So you have your controls, even your wipers are controlled on here. You have your trip computer here. You have, these are some of the controls. You can control things like the trunk on here too. The map quality is absolutely great. Everything is pinch to zoom like you would have on an iPad or any other tablet. The air conditioning is going to be held down here. So those vents, there's no way to adjust them manually. The only way to control them is using these little dots here. And it's a little bit distracting if you're used to having it all in one spot. It definitely takes some getting used to. So if you're the type of person that is not an early adopter to these kind of things, you just like having a volume knob, you just like having a tuner, you just like having those sort of things, this might annoy you just a little bit. So everybody talks about the $35,000 starting price of the Tesla. This particular car is $56,000. So we have the long range battery, that's $9,000, gets you 310 miles. Right now, as of filming, that is the only option that you can get on this car. This also has the $5,000 premium package. So we have these nice leather seats. They're very, very comfortable. They're more on the side of Japanese leather, where it's soft and plush rather than the hard stuff that the Germans use. You're also going to get heated 12-way seats. You're going to get this center console that has 4 USBs in it. The owner actually modified it so that this front area is 2 wireless charging pads. It's a modification that a lot of owners are doing. I think that's a very convenient spot for the wireless charging as well. You're going to get premium audio. You're going to get tinted glass. You're going to get heated dimming, folding side mirrors. You're also going to get those different driver profiles that you can set, LED fog lights. You're going to get satellite maps, and you're going to get this awesome, awesome glass roof. It is tinted, but there is no way to shut it. So there is no flap or anything else like that to avoid the sun. You're also going to get those famous Tesla over-the-air updates, which are great. So Elon, can get a tweet from somebody saying, oh, I want my car to do this, and they'll go ahead and change it. So it's already there. And then this car also has the $3,000 self-drive, this car also has the $5,000, Autopilot, which is enhanced. That gets you the lane change, auto steer, adaptive cruise control, auto park, and the summon feature. There is also going to be a full fully self-driving feature that Elon Musk has promised. That's going to be $3,000, but it is not available yet as of this delivery. If you don't spend $5,000 on the Autopilot and you want it later, Tesla will add it for an additional $1,000, so for a total of $6,000. And then this car also has midnight silver. Black is the only free color, oddly enough. All the other colors cost extra, so that's another $1,000, bringing the total cost up to this to $56,000. We're going to go ahead and exit. There's no physical handle. You just push this little button to get out. I'm going to go ahead and show you the back seat real quick. It's a reasonably sized back seat, especially compared to some of the other cars that the Model 3 technically competes against, gas engine wise. I'm going to go ahead and sit back here. The seat is currently in its far back position because the owner has it set to comfort settings where you get in and it will move the seat up. If the seat was up, I would have plenty of leg room back here, and even the middle seat is not a terrible place to sit because there is no transmission hump, so you can actually fit back here quite well. You have 2 USBs so that the people back here can charge up their devices, and it doesn't feel claustrophobic back here because we have that nice glass roof. The middle seat is a little uncomfortable, although it's much more comfortable than almost every back seat in this segment that I've sat in. So I wouldn't mind sitting back here. And you might have heard the air vents just came on. That's because through using the app, the owner can set it so that the air conditioning comes on so that when you get back in the car, it's not hot, which is great in a place like Florida. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you the rear trunk. Of course, this is a Tesla, so it has 2 trunks. Rear trunk space is very ample, with some extra storage below. And then of course there is also a front trunk area that can be used as well. I think that the styling on this car is a little bit plain. It's not my favorite. These wheels, these are hubcaps. These are the 18-inch wheels. You can also get optional 19-inch wheels for a little bit more. You can take those off if you're not as concerned about getting the full range on here. And it's actually a really unique look. If it was me, I would take the hubcaps off because I like the way that the wheel looks underneath. And the Model 3 is still a pretty good looking car. I don't think it is as sexy as, say, the Model S, but again, this is at a much, much lower price range, and I think this competes very well against the other mid-size cars or compact cars like the BMW 3 Series and Mercedes C-Class. So now I'm going to go ahead and take the Model 3 out for a drive where it is almost entirely different than those cars. You're going to get a very, very different feel that can only really be experienced from getting behind the wheel. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, so now I'm behind the wheel of the Model 3, and this is such an important car for Tesla. This is the car that I think most people are going to be able to afford, because this one has that $35,000 starting price. Unfortunately, you can't buy one of those right now. Tesla is putting the priority on the bigger battery packs and the performance model, which is coming out. They should be arriving now, so those are sort of the M3 rivaling cars, whereas this one is sort of comparative, I would say, to some of the bigger engine cars in this class, maybe a C43, maybe a BMW 340i, although the way it delivers power is completely different than those cars. So as far as a driving experience, those are focused a little bit more on the oral pleasure. You get a lot of sound, you get the sensation of shifting gears, whereas this is more quiet, this is more laid back. And in terms of speed, it actually keeps up quite well with those cars. So let's talk a little bit about what I have on this car. We have the long-range battery, so that's $9,000. That's going to get you 310 miles of range, which is great. That's going to be more than enough to do most people's commutes, and then when you get home, you'll be able to charge up absolutely no problem. And then this car also has the $5,000 premium interior. I talked a little bit about that in my walk around. So I was thinking that I wouldn't like the Model 3 interior just from the pictures that I've seen on it. I thought it would be just a little bit too basic compared to a lot of those cars, but I actually really like it now that I'm sitting in it. I would compare it a little bit to the interior interior that Volvo does. It's very minimalist, but somehow that minimalism just makes it feel really elegant in here. I really enjoy the glass roof and sort of the glass all around. It feels really, really open, almost like you're just in this world of vision. You don't feel cocooned like you do in a lot of other cars. In terms of driving fun, I would say that this car is not on the level of BMW or Mercedes in terms of steering. I don't know if I would necessarily go out of my way to throw this car around a canyon road, but when it comes to passing power, that is a whole lot of fun. So just to overtake somebody, you just put your foot down and oh my goodness, the power is there instantly. We talk a lot about that instant electric torque, and I don't think there are any BMWs, any Mercedes, any Audis on the market that can match this car in terms of whoosh. When you want that power, it's there. So this car as optioned is $56,000, and that level of cash can buy you a lot of other cars. So here's what I think you have to consider when looking at the Model 3 is, do you want to live this sort of Tesla lifestyle? It's a very different experience than owning a normal car. I think that when you own this, people are going to want to come up to you and talk about it. When you get out of it at parking lots, it's a very unique car, and you're just not going to get that with the equivalent BMW or Mercedes. In terms of driving, I think you get used to it really quickly. There's a few oddities, like it has the regenerative braking, so when I take my foot off the gas, it'll sort of start coming to a stop on its own. It's very easy to get used to. I kind of like it. So when you're about to pull up to the car in front of you, you just sort of let off the gas and the car will start to slow down until eventually you're stopped. If you're used to driving a normal gas engine, it might take a little bit to get used to, but of course you can go ahead and turn that off if you want. There's a couple of driving modes here. The acceleration you can set to either comfort or sport. So with the comfort mode turned on, the acceleration is just incredibly smooth, incredibly easy to control, and when you have it in sport, you put your foot down and it's just going to throw your head back. It's really cool. And then the other thing that you have to consider when owning one of these is the fact that this interior is nothing like what you'll get on another car. There's the only one that I can really think of that even comes close in a gas engine car is Volvo, because they have that big screen, very few buttons, and basically a volume knob in the middle. This car just has no buttons aside from the ones that you see here on the steering wheel. So it's a bit distracting, I could imagine, to kind of control a lot of this, but you can do a lot of it using the controls on the wheel. You're gonna get used to where everything is positioned on here. So it's really not too bad. I do wish there were one or two buttons, but I understand that the best way for Tesla to keep the cost down on this car was to make everything a screen. And then the other thing that's a bit weird is you get used to different noises in a car. So when you have that engine on, you're kind of used to the hum and the background of it. And when things are completely silent, you're going to hear a little bit of the road and a little bit things like that, which is not too bad. It's actually very quiet in here. I think the ride is great. I think this is one of the best riding cars. If you compare it to the BMWs and the Mercedes, which are very stiff, this car is actually incredibly comfortable. We are riding over some chewed up pavement right now, and it's great. It's absolutely great. The owner was telling me when you talk on the phone on this car, it's one of those things that you wouldn't think about in electric cars. You can just hear the person on the other line so well. So in terms of that, owning an electric car is a little bit different. And in terms of performance, we have the rear wheel drive one. This car will do 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds. So you never feel like you're driving a slow car. Quite the opposite. This is one of the fastest cars that you can get for the money. And if you go for that dual motor, which is a little bit extra, that 0 to 60 is going to drop to 4.5 seconds. So I really enjoy the Tesla Model 3. I'd really like to see what the interior looks like without the premium package and without the long-range battery for $35,000. $56,000 is just a lot different of a price bracket than I think Tesla was initially promising people. But when you consider you're getting an extra 100 miles of range, and I really do enjoy this interior. I think it's a little bit minimalist, but all of the materials are downright out good. There's nothing that feels cheap. I really like this wood on the dash, so everything feels like it belongs in a luxury category. So I think the Model 3 is really hard to cross shop with other cars. It's very, very much stands on its own, but my recommendation is very, very positive after driving this car. I don't think there's a lot you can cross shop. I think this is kind of its own thing. I wouldn't even try and compare this to a Chevy Bull or a Nissan Leaf or any of those less expensive cars. This is just a class above those by a lot. So the Tesla Model 3 is going to get a positive review from me. No need to shop around unless you're really just not ready for that electric car. There are plenty of other sport sedans with gas engines that you can look at. And if you've liked this review and you'd like to see more, be sure to subscribe to the Car Buzz YouTube channel and be sure to download our app on iOS and Android. I hope you've enjoyed the video. See you next time.